like you said, it was a referral or something?
hmm Yeah, I'm just waiting for this to actually say live so that I can like start
Okay,
into
continue.
it the correct way.
There we go.
Okay. Oh wow, we already got two people.
What's the
John the wordsmith on the call. Um, yeah. So yeah, I was saying that I had a prospect this week, and I was able to use Claude in an interesting way. Like um, this particular prospect wants Instagram carousels, and that's a little bit out of my current like wheelhouse, right? Like mostly I've just been sticking to LinkedIn for a very long time. So, it felt like going into like foreign territory or whatever, right? But I'm like, and I only had so much time because I'm also kind of on this like vacation, even though I never really take a vacation. So I'm like, I got to whip something up fast, like yesterday afternoon, right? So I was doing research on the guy, and I'd be like, I was entering like examples of his posts into Claude and this. But yeah, Claude was able to put together like Instagram carousel samples that I made for the guy, right? And I also used it to like write drafts of the copy that I went through and like edited it meticulously and all that. But yeah, so I was able to like turn around like two Instagram carousels with like caption copy and carousel copy in like something like 60 to 90 minutes while also researching the guy and all that. So
It
yeah,
actually made
starting to realize
graphics? It actually made graphics and everything? Like
like
ready to go?
it made not like advanced or complex stuff. Like it didn't make like yeah, like didn't make graphics. It was more just like arrangements of text, but it did do like like the profile pic, like typical circle that you'd have in this. It had that plus his name and like some simple like designs with like some lines and stuff like this, colored fonts, bolded text. So yeah, they did that.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had someone hit me up this week, a CRO from like a supply chain tech company, along with some sort of NFL player that are teaming it together for a podcast. It was like an inbound lead. But it was interesting because they were saying that, like, the guy was saying that I don't want to spend a lot of money. I don't know what that means to him specifically because we haven't actually got on the call yet. But it's like, all right, noted. But then it sounded like they only wanted it like to get set up essentially. And like I'm thinking to myself, if I have to do that, like I have to get someone to do the graphics. And they wanted like an intro and an outro kind of thing for the show. And I've done some of those things, but I don't do a whole lot of those things. So I was just curious, like, how you two would approach that. Would you like take the risk on would you like take the risk of doing like the intro and outro for them? Or would you like um I mean collect money and then find someone to do that? Or would you try to do it yourself? Or like I don't know. I was just wondering like how you guys would approach something like that.
I mean, it kind of, I could see how, like, for your offer, you're primarily like helping people who want to get on podcasts. So it could be something that comes up more. And I think it kind of goes back to something we were talking about last week of like, you don't really know what those hard lines are around your offer until somebody asks you to do it. And then you do it and you're like, oh, that actually like wasn't that hard at all. And I could probably systemize this and it could make sense for like a potential upsell to go with my offer because it kind of could make sense with your offer. It might not be part of like the core offer, but it
Yeah.
it it could very well be like an extension of your offer. So I think if they're willing to pay you for it and you're like, shit, this could be advantageous for me because it's pretty likely future people might ask for this too, then it could be helpful for you to like have some kind of system or option for that, like you outsource it to somebody or something. Um I think there's like we talked about last week, there's some things that like you just learn after doing it that you're like, I don't want that to be part of my offer. I have no interest in doing it. But it's not just that you have no interest in doing it. I think sometimes people want things that you're like, I actually see no value in us doing that. But for something like this, if these are people that came to you because they see that you're helping people with their podcasts and their videos and they're like, we want a podcast. We have no idea how to set it up. Could you help us set it up? We want like an intro and an outro. That's like a one-time thing that just gets rinsed and repeated. So
Yeah.
that could just be like you tack on, a bit more to the investment as like part of a setup fee because it's very likely you're probably going to get other people that are in that same position where they want a podcast and they're starting from zero.
Yeah.
And if you're able to help them do that setup, then that's just a setup fee that you charge. And it could be very like rinse and repeat.
Yeah. The only thing that slightly worries me is that you find, like you say, charge for it, and then you find someone to do the graphics, and they don't like it, and then all of a sudden it's just eating away at the that is like slightly a concern. Was that ever a concern with you with like the graphic design, Mike? I know that you've hired graphic designers in the past, and has it been fine like for the work that you got?
Yeah, so actually definitely have something to say on this. Cause yeah, I did have a couple things with some ghostwriting clients where, you know, I brought in this graphic designer, and truth be told, full transparency, this graphic designer was not very good. Um, I was very concerned at the time with like keeping the cost low and not like just spending a ton of money per client, right? So I was concerned about margins and this, right? Because I think a good graphic designer can charge a fair amount, right? Yeah, so this was not the greatest graphic designer. I kind of was looking for like a bargain. That's usually not the way to go. Which could be a whole other conversation on why, like, you know, your prospects like should probably be okay with paying you more because if they go with a cheaper alternative, like it probably won't work out that great for them. Well, this story would lend itself to that. Anyway, yeah, went with like not the greatest graphic designer, and I kept kind of getting the same response with clients. There was a lot of because she was just like using very simple like Canva uh, images and stuff that are just like available in Canva, and like a lot of them look very like childish and that kind of thing. And she was using them in a way that was like not very tasteful. And this, so there was a couple times in the beginning when I was a little bit less experienced with how you should run graphics to a client, where I had the graphic designer actually create like, you know, an entire like first week of graphics. Like we had all their content written, fully approved, all that. Like, you know, great, good to go. We probably even had the full month of content approved. But then I'd have the graphic designer create like the first week or the first 2 weeks. I think there was one situation where it was the first 2 weeks. And then I ran that or gave that the graphics over to the client to take a look at, and they really didn't like it. Now, even me looking at it before the client saw it, I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this. Like I thought the same thing, and that's why I knew that the client wasn't wrong. Like I looked at these carousels, I'm like, these graphics that she chose look so childish, like, you know. So I was able to say that even without being a graphic designer. So what you do, long story short, is you run some samples to the client, um, of like, for example, if you're a ghostwriter, it could be like one carousel, you know, or like one carousel and then like your tweet screenshot type image to whatever it is that you're going to be running for them in terms of content. You run them some samples so that you get things like the colors, you know, the fonts, the images, all that stuff ironed out beforehand so that you have their full approval before the graphic designer then goes and creates like all of it, right? So you have to do that same thing for this intro and outro. I definitely also agree with what Kelsey said. Like this has to be, you need a separate budget for this entirely. This is not just something you would do as a freebie, right? Um, but you could give them a good deal on it since they're the first client that you've ever added this for. And then this could be something that, like Kelsey said, it's just like an extra setup fee when people are coming in and they want to launch a podcast.
Yeah, that makes
Boom.
Yeah. We like my partner and I went through a lot of brainstorming around this when we were like kind of looking at our interview offer and going through Hermosi's like $100 million offers, because one of the things he gets you to do is you brainstorm like every single problem that your ideal client has around your offer. So like with my offer, for example, what are all the problems people have around creating content? There's so fucking many. Like you literally, when you actually sit down and dump this all out, you're like, there are so many little problems people have that would stop them from doing this offer themselves. They don't sit down to like come up with the ideas. They don't know how to translate those ideas into content. And then even once they actually like sit down and film it, they don't know what to say when they get on camera. They don't know how to edit it. They don't know how to write a post to go with it. Like there's problems that come with every phase. And then the idea is you kind of figure out, okay, how does my offer solve those problems so that when I get on a call with people, I've essentially already handled all the objections because I have some component of my offer that already solves that problem that they could have. And it's extremely tedious, but it really gets you thinking about like what you do and don't want to have be part of your offer, but how can you have some kind of option to help people solve that problem anyway? And it kind of makes you get clear on like what components you maybe weren't thinking of including, but that would make sense to have as like an additional startup fee or like a potential upsell or something that you kind of have somebody that you're like, I don't handle that, but I have this person who could. Like Jer, I messaged you a few weeks ago that I was like, hey, I'm kind of slowly talking to this person that I interviewed, and it sounds like he and his daughter really want to do their own podcast. That's not something that I'm necessarily looking to like offer to produce for my clients. But if that's the direction he tells me he wants to go and they want help with it, I will send them to you. So there's, that opens up potential partnerships for like, you can be like affiliates with other people. So I think it's good to like have those conversations and have somebody ask you like, hey, this is kind of what we want. Could you do this? And then it puts you in the spot to be like, I could do it. I don't know that I want to, or I don't know what I would charge for that because it's not part of what I've been doing. But I think the more you work with people and the more you get on those calls, the more it makes you kind of reflect on like, oh, maybe there are like corners of this offer that I'm not covering that I'm going to find are more in demand. Um, and what you were saying there, Mike, before we were getting on the call and what you were talking about there with like creating like graphics and stuff for people, that's actually something that I've been like playing around a lot with in my business because I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I see a lot of like content from like Diary of a CEO and like podcasts that I like. And I've noticed a kind of newer, at least I think it's a newer trend that people do is they'll take like screenshots from that podcast and make like a carousel out of it. So it's just like a still of that person talking and then they'll have like a text like reading what that person said. So they're usually taking like a short, like some kind of small clip where that person maybe like told a good story or said something impactful. And instead of just having the short, they'll also then take that and make it into a carousel. So people want to swipe through to see like what all did this person say. And I'm like, that would be like, I think I want to include that in the offer because that's a really straightforward way to like get more content out of that interview because you're essentially taking that interview, cutting the shorts, but then every short, if they're saying something that's worth saying or they're telling a story or they're making a point, that could be repurposed into a carousel format. And I see that seems to be working well for people who have podcasts. They're taking those shorts and making them into carousels. But I haven't discovered a way yet. Like carousels are one thing that I haven't found I can completely outsource to AI. Right now, I just have my VA doing it. So I'm like, hey, take this short and make it into a carousel. And I send her examples. I'm like, I want it to look like this. It doesn't need to be like word for word verbatim what they said, because sometimes, hearing somebody say something, it doesn't always translate word for word to like text. But I just haven't found a way to like get carousels done very quickly. So up until now, I've kind of slowly started phasing them out of the ghostwriting work I do because I'm like, they take a lot of time to make, especially if you want them to look a certain way. And like you said, Mike, you don't want them to look like super graphic or like very childish. I just found they take a lot of time to make. I can't figure out a way to get AI to do a great job with them. And especially these ones now doing the kind of podcast interview style ones. I need like the stills from that short, right? So somebody needs to like go in, screenshot those, put them in Canva or whatever, and then put the text over it. So I know that I like that idea. It's another way to repurpose the content, but I'm thinking a lot lately about like the time it takes to make them versus the like, ROI that we get on them. So it's interesting that you brought that up. So I'm like, I have like a bit of a love-hate relationship with carousels.
Dakota's wife actually just did one, like that you're talking about with like the pictures, and she did a video on it too, I think. But then there was like a carousel version of it. It was just a picture of her, and then it was all about how Alex Hormozy content sucks. So I was like, wow, that's a really bold statement for someone to say.
Was that his wife?
Yeah, and then yeah, that's his wife, and like she was like kind of going off on like how like his thumbnails are generic, his hooks are. I don't necessarily agree with her, but like I thought it was like bold point of view because I was like, damn girl, like you're fucking on it, like go for it.
What did what were the comment section reactions like to that?
I think they were kind of agreeing with her. Like, it's like that
Really?
whole thing of like somehow like certain people can get away with more stuff than others and like,
Yeah.
ramble and whatever. But I think that everyone's different. Like, I think we've mentioned this on other calls. Like, we probably couldn't put out like Dan Co content and have it pop off. Like, that's just specific because he has those blonde locks and he looks a certain way and, like whatever.
Hey, blonde locks alone don't help you.
Not enough,
If
but yeah,
no,
smart
but we've
businessman. Yeah.
yeah, we've talked about it before though that like when you've built up the level of authority that somebody like Dan Coe has, and there's people who show up just because they know they love his shit, he can say guru level stuff where it's just like very kind of, I don't want to say generic, but very like broad advice, and people will still eat it up because they're like, oh well, I value Dan Coe's opinion, so if he says this, I take it to heart. Whereas if it's a fucking random person with 500 followers on LinkedIn, they could post the exact same thing word for word and it's not going to carry nearly as much weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dan Coe also has the entire, and this is like exactly we did talk about this. He has that entire flip side of it where he does go very deep. Like some of his YouTube content in this, he'll be going very deep on topics like productivity or like mindset and that kind of thing. It's not actually fluffy stuff. So he's definitely earned the right to have a one-liner, like, platitude post. Not that I really see that much of that like short form platitude stuff from him. But yeah.
No, yeah, he's been at it for a while. It's almost like amazing how much he's done for how old he is. It's just crazy the amount of shit that he's tried. It's pretty crazy. Like they just kind of go for it. It seems like, and it seems like I don't know. I'm curious to see how his Cortex product goes too, because now he's got a SaaS too, and that could blow up. Seems like it already is.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he's got something else too, right? Eden.
Mhm.
Eden
I
is
think
his.
is Eden. I think Eden's going to be like the next version of Cortex, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's totally separate. I could be wrong.
I don't actually know. I never took a deep dive into Cortex or Eden. Yeah, there's so many tools, right? Like Tailwind, and then talk about this other one, Whisper Flow,
Mhm.
which it sounds like it's amazing for like voice to text stuff, which like I'm really big into, but I haven't jumped into that because like as it is, I got enough subscriptions, right? And like, man, those subscriptions can sneak up on you. I got so many that I have to like go through and like reduce them or remove them that like I don't frequently use, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, my partner and I did that recently because we were kind of reviewing all our expenses. 'Cause I'm like, I think we should do this like every 6 months. Like, just look at all the different things coming off your credit card. And when you actually sit down and do that, sometimes you're like, I don't even know what some of these are. Like, some
yeah.
of them just come through as like through like Apple Pay or something. So you're like, hey, what is this one for $30 a month that we're paying for? I don't even know what this is.
Mhm.
Or like we had a subscription to Audible, and I definitely read audiobooks, but not enough to pay like $20 a month for a subscription to it. So just little things like that like it's not a lot, but it adds up. I think doing kind of a subscription review every 6 months is something that I will continue to practice from now on. But yeah, Whisper, I had talked to Landon Poburin I think I'm pronouncing his last name right, on Substack a while back. And I think he introduced Taylin to that, and then they were both kind of posting about how great it was because it basically is a software that you can kind of link to all your different socials, and it allows you to respond to people, like even like respond to their comments by just talking. I think the format, like, you need to clean it up a little bit because it comes out as just like one huge paragraph. Like if somebody, comments on your Substack post and then you're just talking into it to respond, it's just going to come out like a big paragraph with like no punctuation or anything like that. So I remember seeing that and I was like, in the moment of like, this doesn't feel like a tool that I want to take the time to like finesse with right now. But I agree. I prefer like being able to send voice notes over just texting all day. I get really sick of typing by the end of the day.
Would that be
No
different than just doing it
punctuation or
on
no white space?
No white space, but I remember Landon, I think, posting a screenshot and it was just like all one big paragraph. And I pretty sure I remember there not being punctuation because it might
Oh,
be one of those things where you have to say like period,
ah,
exclamation mark, and maybe he just didn't in that instance.
Is
gotcha.
it different than typing just like talking straight into Claude and like just having a project that you type? I mean, just talking to. I wonder what's like different about it.
Um, I don't know, honestly. I didn't get too deep looking into it, but what I think it essentially is it kind of gives you the capability to put like a microphone into all these different apps so you can talk text.
Hmm.
So I don't know what the difference is between that and Claude, but it's like in Substack, one of my least favorite things is that I can't send you guys voice notes in Substack. I have to send you texts.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's one interesting part of it. So you could be in Substack and you're looking at a post and like Whisper Flow would be right there, as like an extension or something, and then you'd be able to just talk out the comment, the response, right?
Mhm.
Because yeah, like typing out responses to posts, it makes it something that does get old very fast. However, just responding with your voice is, I don't know, it's just seamless. Um, and I've also heard another like benefit of it is apparently it does a better job of picking up the words that you're actually saying. Like it picks them up cleaner than maybe some of the other AI tools.
How do you guys think about like urgency too? Like if you have a client, I don't know, I'm sure that you both have a bunch of people in your pipeline that probably have some percentage likelihood of closing that you probably could close. Is there any way that you guys are looking at like urgency to get those people across the line if you can? Or like, and also like how much do you follow up with these people? Like, do you follow up with them to the point where they say no, fuck off, or do you just kind of like stop after a couple times out of curiosity?
Do you want to
Well,
go
I
first,
do.
Mike?
Yeah, I'll go first because I had a sales call yesterday, right? And it went well. The guy, it's not as typical as it would normally be where I'd work with the guy more as a contractor. I still would be a contractor, but it kind of seems like he's looking for just like someone to bring in house. Now, it doesn't really change that much. But for example, he talked about there like sometimes we might want to do a post where it's more like on the fly, right? Um so it'd be and I asked him about that, like what would that look like? It's like, oh, well, there might be a time where it's like we, because of a trend, we want to get out something like tomorrow, right? And I'm like, what percentage of posts would be like that, right? And we arrived on like maybe 20 or 25%. I'm like, okay, well, that's not that big of a deal. Like, so it's just like a term, like somebody in house versus working with an agency, right? There might be a difference in feel and this, and like agencies tend to, I think, have like stronger boundaries and that, right? Versus just like some uh, like freelancer or contractor that you've like that that feels more like in house. An agency might have their own set of rules where maybe a freelancer or contractor is just expected to be more flexible. But anyway, it could be a very good gig for me because it's like 14 carousels a month, and what I'm asking for is like reasonable, but based on the fact that I don't have to produce any of the designs, don't have to schedule any of the content, handle any of the engagement, like none of that. Writing 14 carousels is pretty easy for me. Like, but that said, you still got to make sure that all the topics are like on point. The hooks are on point. These are like solid ideas that that actually have a chance of like uh, getting high traffic and bringing in leads for the guy and this. So, but anyway, I was going to say, I think you really have to make that first sales call count. Cause like the call I did with this guy yesterday, even though it was like kind of foreign territory for me, and we're talking Instagram carousels and all that. And, there was a couple curveballs, like where midway through the conversation yesterday, he asked me what I'm looking for just out of nowhere. And like, that's from an agency perspective, like that's not really a question that you get a lot that way. And I was like, what am I looking for? I'm like, well, maybe I should ask you more about what you're looking for first before I answer that. I just had to be straight up because like that was just not a question I get very much from an agency perspective. What am I looking for? It's more like a question that you ask like an employee
Mhm.
what they're looking for from a job, right? So I'm like, maybe I should ask you more what you're looking for, and then I'll have a better answer there, right? Because I just like, aside from like a certain number, I wasn't sure what to tell him there. A good working relationship? I don't
Yeah.
know,
I actually like that question. I think I'd appreciate it if somebody asked that because I agree what you're saying that in the moment it could kind of feel like
Yeah,
something that you would ask like an employee, but I see it as like a partnership. So I would take that as he's asking like, what do you want out of a partner? And if somebody were
valid.
to ask me that, I would just be straight about like what makes a good client for me. So
Mm,
like understanding like that this is a service agreement. So like understanding like this is what I'm going to provide. This is like my kind of promise to you as your partner on this. What I look for in clients is I look for somebody who, does what they say they're going to do. Like if we say we're meeting for one interview every month and we have that date set, I'm looking for somebody who is committed that they're going to show up to that interview. I'm not going to get, frequent last minute cancellations from you because I'm really looking for like a reliable client. I don't ask a lot of my clients. And one of my priorities is that this takes as little of your time every month as possible. But if we're agreeing that I'm going to interview you for 90 minutes every month, the biggest thing is I'm looking for a client that's going to show up to that interview and like want to do this. Like I'm not here to like beg you for your service or anything like that. You need to want to make the content and to want to put your message out there, and I will handle the rest. Um, so I think that would just be an opportunity to say like what makes an ideal client for you. And I'm sure we could probably all think of like one or two things off the top of our head. Like we want somebody who values content and they want to put their message out there. They want to reach more people and they're just looking for the right partner to help them with it. And I look for somebody who does what they say they're going to do. When you say you're going to show up to a meeting, you show up to it. When you say you're going to, have something to me by a certain date, you have it to me by that date. And, we both kind of get on the same page with like what the agreeables are and we hold ourselves to those. That's literally like the bottom line that I ask of any client. Because if you have clients that don't do that and you learn very quickly that this client is not reliable, this client doesn't do what they tell me they're going to do, they don't have things back to me when we agreed they'd have them back to me, whether it's like approvals or whatever. No matter how awesome of a personality that client has, they're going to become very difficult to work with because at some point, their lack of doing whatever small part you need them to do is going to affect you being able to do what you're doing. Like, Jer, if you kept, showing up to meet with somebody to record with them and they continually canceled that call, probably not going to take very long for you to be like, this might not be a good partnership. Like,
Yeah.
this guy never does the one thing that I require my clients to do. Um, so actually, I like that he asked you that, Mike, because I see it as like, what would a good collaboration here look like from your end?
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I like that he asked me it too, but it's like sometimes it's like if you've never received that question, it's like it just kind of momentarily it stumps you. So that was one of the few things that kind of stumped me there. It's like because I it was just a perspective shift that like I'm not used to entering into because I'm thinking like from an agency owner like business person thing, and like it's rare that they ask you that in that way. Um but yeah, I mean that'll always happen too. You'll always have questions like that come up on sales calls where you weren't quite prepared for it. Yeah.
By the way,
Um,
did you give him a price right away with like 14 carousels and keep that in your head like
mm,
on the fly, or did you just say like I need some time to think about this? Because sometimes I get caught in that position in the moment and excited and just like saying fuck it, like I want to get this done, and just kind of don't think things through completely and just make shit up on the fly or whatever. And I know that it's probably better to like wait and then get back to them potentially. I don't know.
yeah, so good question. I didn't come up with a price on that call for him. I told him at the end, because we were heading in that direction, right? I told him at the end though, I'm like, can I take can I take just a little bit of time to get back to you on the price? And he was like, totally cool with that. And we just discussed or came up with a plan. Like I'd send him an email with that price. But then what I did is as soon as I got off the call, I immediately started piecing it together. Like I had an idea of what it was going to be. Like either I was kind of already thinking like about $3,000. Um, and I did go to like Claude actually. These AI tools are good at that, by the way. They're good at kind of like helping you price things from like an industry sort of standpoint. And like they hit it pretty on the money because they're also good at kind of summing up the scale of who you're working with in this. Like the number it gave me, it was like you should probably be around like, 2,500, maybe to like 3,000, or like I think it ended up going up to maybe like 3,500. I told it some added stuff as well. I'm like, he wants to maybe like do some posts that are more like on the fly. That might require like, a 24-hour turnaround, that kind of thing. So like that, it gave me a range up to about 3,500, right? I'm like, for 14 carousels where I'm not producing any of the graphics, just the copy in this, I'm like 3,000 seems good. So
I had a call this week that I had pitched some guy, and he was a cybersecurity founder, and he's like just raising money, and I pitched him on like doing like six. This one wasn't a free video. I kind of pitched him on like, hey, I can get like six videos out of you in like 2 hours of your time, kind of the convenience factor or whatever. And it was really interesting because he was like pumped to talk to me in the DMs, and then he gets on the call and he like literally it was like Groundhog Day. He's like, "What is like, I was trying to actually just build rapport with him at first because I thought that he already read my message and knew who I was. So I was just trying to like get to know him or whatever. And he's like, "Yo, what's this about?" Like right in the middle of like the thing. And I was just like, "Oh, he doesn't fucking know who I am." And like I just kind of pitched him on the idea again. And he's like, "No, I'm not really interested in that right now at the moment." But I thought it was really interesting that some people like even when you pitch them, they don't go back to they'll accept the meeting sometimes and not even like go back to read the thing or whatever. And he was like a lawyer too. So in my head, I was like, "Oh, this guy like would be a great fit or whatever." And then he's like, "Yeah, I don't." I quoted him like $1,500, but it was really weird to like have to pitch. Like it was just like go. I felt like Shark Tank almost like at the beginning, and I was like, "Here's what I could do." Da, 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 da. It would be like $1,500, 6 videos, and at the end, he's like, "Yeah, I don't have $1,500 to pay you right now for 6 videos." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then I kind of just like walked away. But it was an interesting call. But I guess that's part of the game when you're in the DMs.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, I've had sales calls like that before where people show up completely unprepared. And like, this is going back to like doing sales calls for that coaching program. Because basically they had a whole system where like after you booked the call, you immediately got taken to like a pre-call page where they had two short videos, and one of them was like the owner of the program saying like, "Hey, this is what this is about. This is how we do this. This is what you're going to learn in the program." And then underneath that was frequently asked questions. And they had an automation where we could see if somebody had actually like watched those two videos. So you could kind of know going into the call whether the person had like taken the step. And I eventually got to a point where like if it looked to me like they hadn't watched the videos and I confirmed with them and they said like, yeah, I didn't, I would just end the call right there, because essentially in that case you're like, well, this is like you're on this call because you're interested in learning business, but you want to do it through a coaching program. So you want to be shown what to do. You want to be given instructions, you want to be given guidance, you want support. The very, very first thing, the first instruction you got was to watch those two videos, and you didn't watch them.
No integrity.
So
For the time.
like I wouldn't like guilt them over it, but it was like, we should reschedule this call so you can watch those, because that is step one. This call is like step two. But it was always really interesting to me when people would show up and they did absolutely no research on the program. Sometimes people are like, yeah, sorry, what is this again? And at that point I'm like, the fuck are you doing? Like I personally would never imagine taking time out of my day to get on a call with somebody if I don't know what it's for. I think I've
Yeah.
done that one time in my life and I absolutely regretted it, because I was like, yeah, I actually don't know what this call is for. And I felt stupid saying that. And it was somebody that was trying to pitch me on something. But I I just don't understand when people will take time out of their day to book a call with somebody, especially if they're looking at like a coaching program, and like you didn't take any time to just Google the program to see like, is this a scam? Like you didn't think to take time to do that. So you're taking time out of your day. You're taking time out of my day, and you have no idea why we're on this call.
Yeah, it baffles me.
It's probably not going to be a good fit.
Those curveball questions are nice though, because I feel like it put me on the spot to like, can I pitch this like under pressure, like now, like go monkey, and I was able to do it, which was good. But like, yeah, I think the more sales calls, like the more conversations, the better, because then you kind of get put in these fucked up situations where you kind of have to like figure it out and like kind of like maneuver a little bit more, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think what I just thought of there, Jared, that you could have maybe done on the call, and maybe you did. And this was kind of the stance that I started taking, like when people showed up to the call unprepared, but they were like, but no, I still want the information. I still want to know. Or I think I told you guys a story once before of that guy who came to the call and he was like super pissy and super skeptical. And I was like, I'm not going to sell you on this call, man. Like, when that happens now, I just kind of see it as like, okay, I'm not going to sell this person. I'm not going to even try to pitch them. But this is still an opportunity for me to plant a seed to tell somebody else what I'm doing. So it's like, okay, you booked this call because you wanted some information. Obviously, you don't have context on what this is about. You don't seem like you're in a position where like you would even be ready to move forward if I wanted to. So I'm not going to try to sell you on this call in any way. I'm not even going to like give you my pitch or anything, but I'll at least tell you what I do so that maybe in the future, if this comes back around and this makes sense, you at least know like who I am and what I do. So I kind of take that as like, this doesn't have to be a complete waste of a conversation. I'm not going to pitch this person, but here's like a quick rundown of like, why I would get on a call with somebody. Here's like what I do. This is my offer. This is like what you get from it. If you know anybody that you think would be a fit for that, cool. If you have any questions, you can always message me in the future. So it's like something in my brain switches and I'm like, okay, we're not selling, we're not pitching, but I can still plant a seed here and I can still at least give that person value in the sense of like I'm giving them some of the context or information that they I assume they would have booked this call looking for.
I'm the kind of person where like my close rate, and I'm not talking about me as a salesperson, but when I hop on a call, I'm like I'm already pretty invested. Like I'm probably gonna buy from you. Like I don't like hopping on a bunch of calls. Like if I'm showing up to the call, I know who you are, I know what your offer is, I know what your product is, and I'm strongly considering buying from you. my close rate for showing up to call is probably like 85% or something like this. Like I probably buy 85% of the time because I'm not looking to like waste my time jumping on a bunch of calls.
Yeah, you're already convinced by the time you get on that call.
Yeah. So
The interesting thing about what you're doing too, Kelsey, the reverse psychology of not wanting it and needing it makes like them want it more for some reason, which is also interesting. Like I always feel like that when there's that at like desperation factor there, it never works out. Or when we're trying to overpitch or oversell, I feel like it never works. So I almost feel like that, like somehow finding that like candidness is pretty smart to like get into that frame on purpose almost.
Yeah. I mean, I have close people with that approach, and I didn't see it like that at the time. It wasn't like, I'm gonna reverse psychology this person and, like, take it away from them. It was just genuinely me being like, "Okay, you're not prepared for this call, or you seem super skeptical. You don't really seem like you're in a place to, like, move or on this or, like, buy anyway. So, I'm not gonna even try, but I'll give you the information so you at least know what this is. So if you decide, like, a few days from now, you're still thinking about this, you can always come back to it. But like, I don't need you to say yes on this call. And if I'm getting the impression that like you're not in a position to move forward, I'm not going to like try to convince you that you are, but I can at least still tell you what it is. And then that way I feel like they still get a win out of it because they came to the call and got something that they were looking for. And I still get a win out of it because I'm like, sweet, that's now one more person in the universe who knows who I am and what I do. Like I said, I just see it as like another seed planted. But I guess there is, yeah, it could be like a reverse psychology, like, taking it away from them kind of thing. But I think it just kind of goes back to what you originally asked, Jer, of like, how do you follow up with people and how do you handle those conversations when somebody seems like they're stalling or they're not that interested? I I really don't like feeling like I'm chasing people. So I think when you can kind of have that approach of like, hey, this is what I do. This is like, why I'm reaching out to you about it. I'm more likely to follow up with people that like I'm really excited about what I see from them. Like there's something about what they're doing that I already kind of see a vision for how I could help them. And I will just tell them that. I'm like, I'm following up with you again because of this reason, because like I see you doing this and that really excites me, or I see you making content about this and like I'm really into that topic. So I'm usually like pretty straightforward with the people I do follow up with more about like why I'm making the effort to follow up with them more. But I think there's kind of power in just saying like, hey, this is why I reached out to you. This is like the collaboration I could see us doing. This is what I could do for you. And this is how I could see it benefiting you. This is how it works, like what I do. And if they ask about the investment, then like, yeah, this is what it is. And if they don't move from that point, I'm probably not gonna like keep coming back and try to like convince them of why they should move. I'm like, okay, you have the information. I'm gonna keep moving on. I don't need you to say yes to this, but like you know what it is now. And if you think about me in the future, cool. I'm gonna keep moving.
Mike, I know you wrote a newsletter this week about getting paid first, and I'm just curious, like if you get someone on the call and they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I want to go. Do you send them like your proposal right away and then like another thing with your Stripe link, or how do you do that to cover yourself?
yeah, sometimes I send the invoice before even sending the proposal. Um, That's how important taking the money up front is. Uh, no, like actually, like seriously, probably have been some times where I have sent the invoice before the proposal, just because somebody is ready to go, and like I might even tell them like, yeah, not typically a lot of people like if there is going to be a proposal or agreement, they will want the agreement up front in this, but like
Mhm.
yeah, there probably have been some times where I've done it in the reverse way. Um, but I'm sorry. What was the question there? Like in terms of
Yeah, I was just curious as like, do you? It sounds like you'll do either one. Like sometimes you'll send the invoice first or the proposal, but I'm trying to
Mhm,
make a habit of sending the proposal to cover my ass because it seems like
mhm.
at the end of the day, those documents are important too. Because like if there's a dispute or something like that, like you obviously want to like cover your ass. So I was just curious, like, do you like your process? It sounds like you probably send the proposal and then the invoice maybe is kind of like that. Sometimes it's reversed though. Sounds like.
Yeah, like And there have been times where I've like, even for some big deals, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but like there's been times where I've only worked from an invoice where it's like the invoice will have details on it, right? But it won't be like a formal proposal from like PandaDoc, right? Just because it's like, I don't know, just the way it works out. The client's ready to go. You fire off an invoice. You never get around to sending off a proposal. You have more of a handshake agreement, even though you've never met the person in person. Yeah, yeah. And interestingly, like that deal that I wrote about in my newsletter, like it was probably that. I don't know if I had, it was just like we'll do month to month. Um, and like for all three partners, it'll be like $8,000 or whatever, right? But yeah, no, that story is like a really great example of why you should always take payment up front. But also, it shows that like you can also, even when you're experienced in this and you've had a habit of always charging up front, you can still fall into these traps. If you're in an opportunity that is not like typical to what you normally do, like three business partners, ghostwriting for three business partners was not something that I had really done a lot of up until that point. It was usually like singular founder, right? That kind of thing. But in this case, it's like, did a call with a guy. He had one of the partners on the call. He ended up being like, what could you do if I bring like all three of us, myself and two partners, right? Gave him a deal and he moved ahead with it. But going into that second month, I made I compromised or like, because I guess I was thinking like that maybe he needs to talk to his partners or whatever, but that in itself is a red flag. Like that's not a reason why you should go ahead with the work, because it can lead to complications, right? But here's the thing, and this is where I got trapped into this, is that I had him um schedule an interview call. I did the interview call with him, and at the end, I confirmed, like again, I'm like, so all three of you are moving forward into month two, and he's like, yep, yeah, we're all moving into month two, right? I got the full confirmation from him that they were moving into month two. So I'm like, okay, and I reminded him about the invoice that he needed to pay for months two, also at the end of that call. Um, right? And he also acknowledged that, right? He's like, okay, yeah, right. So I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, well, he's acknowledged that they're all moving into month two. He's acknowledged the invoice. So, and I did an interview call with him. So I said to the writer, I'm like, listen, the invoice isn't paid yet, but he said that they're all going into month two. I also told the writer, I'm like, if some freak accident happens and these guys back out, I won't be able to pay you. So, um, like because I'm like, things do happen. I knew that, but yeah, and then I scheduled. So I had the writer was like, you know what, I will do it. I will get started with the drafts. Right. He got started with the drafts. Then I got started with the editing. Then I was like, even though I hadn't been paid yet, I'm like, maybe I should schedule an interview call with the second guy, because if the second guy also agrees, that's even more confirmation that this invoice is going to get paid. Schedule with him. And did a call with him, wrote the drafts for him, started editing the drafts for him. And only then did we find out the third partner doesn't want to continue. And the third partner was like the financer of all of it.
Oh, damn.
So that just kiboshed the whole thing. Right. So, yeah.
When you guys ask for like payment, like prepaid, like how do you guys word that? You just say like, I don't start work until I'm paid? Or like, what's like the language?
Yeah, I
I
just set
think
that expectation on the
payment up
call.
front.
Yeah. I actually found, if you can, I think the smartest thing I've ever done is sending the invoice on the call. Like, if like
Yeah.
unless Like I've had some calls before where like I was really new and the call might have taken longer because we're just trying to figure out like the rhythm of it. But I learned really early on, like send the invoice on the call. And like if you've agreed this is what we're gonna do, this is the investment. Cool. What's your email? I'll send you the invoice right now. Not that you need to like stay on the call until they pay it, but I think sending it while you're still on the call even makes a difference. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday as per our conversation, Mike, and I made a post about it last week on LinkedIn. I'm like, or on Substack, I was like, if you are an entrepreneur, whether it's full time, side business, whatever, you should always get paid up front solely for no other reason than money can be returned, time cannot be returned. I don't think you need any other justification than that. If if I do this for you and you think that I didn't meet my deliverables or there's a quality issue or whatever, all of that can be fixed. If you're like absolutely unsatisfied with what I did, I can send you your money back. You cannot send me my time back. So I don't think like it's as simple as that. Employees get paid after, entrepreneurs get paid up front. Um,
Yeah, because there's a risk factor as an
Absolutely.
entrepreneur because you're
Like
paying
what
through like the labor and the fulfillment of this thing to make it happen. You
yeah,
know?
like what you did there, Mike, of like doing multiple interviews with those people and like getting that process started, like that is all even if you're not paying a contractor, like even if you don't
Yeah.
have a different writer that you're paying or whatever, you're still taking time away from your other clients, from your business to put into this client. And you shouldn't be doing that if they haven't paid you up front. Like it's as simple as that. So I have the philosophy now, like I start work when the invoice comes through. If the invoice has not come through yet, I'll follow up with you a couple times to say like, "Hey, just want to check in, like we're ready to go. You know, is everything okay on your end? Any other questions?" But if they're just like dodging, I'm moving on. Like I'm not going to put an hour of work into this if you can't do the really the one thing that's like your deliverable at this point, which is to pay the invoice.
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely excited for that. I was excited for that next 8K payment. And that I think that is what made me make some just like the only bad decision was just continuing to do the work without getting paid. But I actually I don't know if this is unique to me, but I love that story because it actually like throws me right back there. I was in Buenos Aires when I like heard that they were going to be moving forward. It was the largest like, payment that I'd ever received in one shot like that, like just like 8,000 USD, all that. And even though it didn't work out going into month two, like it's and even with that writer who I was working with at the time, it's kind of a funny story between the two of us because I had him like I was updating him on exactly what was going on the whole time. And like it's not that bad of a story for him either because it's like he got paid for month one and then we both just got screwed in month two. So
Yeah, payment up front
It
always.
seems like it seems like some of those things are like the uncomfortable conversations that we have to have, like with clients, is probably one of the harder parts that I've had. Like I'm learning and still learning, like the things that like are not fun. Like, hey, like you have to pay this before you start, da 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 da. Or like it also gets uncomfortable too, I guess, if they paid month one and then all of a sudden, like, you send the invoice for month two and they haven't paid it or whatever quite yet. So yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's only
so
uncomfortable if you choose to see it that way though. Like because if you're telling yourself this is uncomfortable that I have to like chase this person to pay the invoice, yeah, it's uncomfortable because you don't want to have to do that with clients because now you feel like you're almost like validating yourself to be like, "Hey, I deserve to get paid. Like, what's going on?" Like it feels weird when you have clients that put you in that position where you have to do that. But like I again, it just goes back to what we said before. Like you working with clients is a collaboration. It's a partnership. You are agreeing to provide this service. They are agreeing to pay for it. If they are not holding up on their end of the agreement, you have every right as the partner to be like, "Hey, what's up? The invoice was due 7 days ago. We got your next interview lined up. Like, is everything okay? I think it's just a matter of like having an honest conversation, and in that moment, not seeing them as a prospect or a client, but just seeing them as another human being that you're working with, and just being like, hey, I was about to set up our next interview. I noticed the invoice is 7 days overdue. Just wanted to check, is everything okay? I've had this pop up multiple times in my business in the last month. Like Mike and I participated in a creator panel, and I learned that I didn't even go back and check until recently. And I realized, oh shit, they never paid the invoice. And there was actually supposed to be additional funds sent because some of the people I brought to that call had signed up for their product. So I was supposed to get an additional percentage on top of that. And I'm like, oh, interesting. They never paid. And then I followed up with them to be like, hey, just wanted to check. I knew I sent the invoice to the right person. And then they just started ghosting, and they like all of a sudden just weren't answering at all. So I sent an email CCing the other speakers who had participated, and they responded. And they're like, we haven't been paid either. And one of them was like, they actually asked me to do another event. And I was like, you haven't paid me for the first one. And it wasn't
And guess
enough.
what? I did charge up front and I got paid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you have it.
Yeah. So it wasn't enough money for me to like continually follow up with them. I was like, this is not even worth my energy to keep bugging you guys about this. But I did send them like what I thought was going to be a final email the other day. And I just said like, hey, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm really fucking disappointed. Like it's really surprising to me that a front facing company where you guys are like putting out content and doing these panels would be willing to bring on panelists and agree to pay them and then just ghost when it comes to payment time. I was like, I'm not going to follow up with you guys again. It's not worth my time, but I just want you to know that this is the impression that I will forever have of your company and all the people that work for you. And I would never recommend any other creators I know to work with you if this is how we leave it. It's really disappointing. And
It's so crazy that for that amount of money, right? It was, very small amount of money that they're willing to trade their reputation for that amount of money. It's like, it
exactly.
makes no sense. What is going
Yeah.
on with, and then you actually brought people that signed up. How do you know that? Like, that's
Because
crazy.
after the event, they sent us a spreadsheet saying, "Hey, this is the list of the attendees. This is who each attendee was attributed to." And I know because on the call they were announcing when people bought the offer. So I knew there were people whose names I recognized on that call that I knew came from me, and that sheet they sent after proved it. Like they showed which names came from which person. And I was like, not only did I bring the most attendees to this call, I actually got you guys additional sales. So the fact that now when it comes to paying the invoice, you guys are just completely ghosting and just haven't answered any of us for a month is crazy because it's 2026. Like your reputation is surely worth more than the, you know, probably less than $1,000 they owe everybody from that event. So that was one instance where it was like, I am fine to wash my hands of this. I'm still appreciative for the opportunity. It was still a cool experience. I still got content out of it, but I'm really disappointed that this is the way you guys are handling it. But I also had somebody else this month whose bookkeeper I just realized accidentally didn't send the payments for the last 3 months. And that was a very different tone. I was like, "Hey, I hope you guys are doing good. I just looked today and I noticed the last 3 months haven't been paid. My bad for not being on top of that. I probably should have caught it sooner, but just want to check that we can get this reconciled so we can move forward this month." And I let them know in that email, like, I will hold off on moving forward with this project until I hear from you guys. And it got settled up and it's all good. But I didn't see it as like, oh, I need to like chase this person to pay me. I didn't see it as like, hey, can you pay me so I feel good enough? I saw it as like, this is a partnership. This is a collaboration. I provide my service and you guys are paying for it. That part on your end isn't being fulfilled. So I'm going to hold off until I hear from you because I just want to make sure we're good to move forward. Yeah, I just see it as like talking to another human and being like, hey, is everything okay? I noticed this didn't come through.
Yeah. And the more nonchalant you are about payment, by the way, and Jeremy, you should keep this in mind. Like, like the way I announce that or tell the prospect that payments up front is just like, it's just, I don't know. It's so nonchalant. It's just something like, yeah, and we always just take payment up front before the work begins, or like, or a lot of time it's more kind of like they'll ask me, so how would we move forward, Mike? And it's like, yeah, so once that first payment is made, that then we schedule the interview call, right? Then on that interview call, I ask you questions. The whole thing is transcribed. We use that transcript to batch the first 30 days of content. So then it's like just action oriented. Once you pay that first invoice, we schedule the interview call. You see how like quickly that's also like said there too. So it's not like you're saying to them, and yeah, I always take the payment up front. It's like once that is paid, then we do this, then we do this, like phase 1, 2, 3. So the payment is like one of the phases.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's smart the way you
yeah,
worded that.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
Like, it just comes naturally after like 10 years of like agency. That's another thing too. It's the reps. Like it gets easier with the reps.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think there's more justification that you can go into with it. Like if somebody were to ask you, why do you get paid up front? It's an interesting question, but I mean, you can walk them through the process. Like, yeah, so this is how it works. This is how we'd move forward. Once that invoice goes through, we schedule the next interview and yada, yada, yada. And you walk them through that process. And then if they further question it, I mean, number one, I would question how they operate things in their business because just from like a very logistical standpoint, we all have probably team members that we outsource things to. We have softwares we pay for. We have costs of running the business. So, by those standards, if this person runs a business, they're probably already thinking similar to that. So it's unlikely like if you're working with people that are established, I think you're less likely to run into people that are questioning why you get paid up front because it's part of running the business. Like I have writers I have to pay for, I have editors I pay for, I have softwares that we have to pay for to use to do this interview with you and all that stuff. So we don't start doing that work and labor until the payment comes through. I think it's
Yeah.
very straightforward, but I honestly don't think you need any other justification outside of money can be returned, time can't.
I haven't had to explain it for a very long time. I haven't had to explain it for a very long time. And I'll tell you this, we've sometimes talked about red flags. If somebody asks you why you get paid up front, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm gonna put that into the red flag category.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the online business space, if somebody asks you like why do you get paid up front, that to me is a red flag. Because I don't know. It's almost like they're asking you that because it's like they want a way out or something where it's like, what if I don't like the work or something? I just decide like I don't want to pay you or something.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
um,
100%. And I think you also like for me at least, like I had a client before that I was doing his emails for him. And eventually at that point, this was like previously, I got paid at the end of the month for all the work that was done. And I just found when I did that, it it almost set the tone of the relationship differently because this client was very often sending me like last minute work. So I one of the things I was doing was I was writing his email campaigns for him. And it happened on more than one occasion where he would email me on, like, the Thursday and be like, "Hey, I really wanna do, like, a promo next week, like, all of next week. I really wanna send out, like, an email every
I have to
day."
hop. I have to get off. You guys should definitely continue, but I'll see
Yeah,
you next
Yeah.
week.
See you next week.
Okay.
that's
See ya.
okay. I'll finish this story and then we can hop off
Yeah,
chair.
sounds good.
Um, yeah, and he kept just, like, kinda springing last minute work on me, and eventually I just said, like, I needed to kinda, like, stipulate those boundaries. So I think when you get paid upfront and you're in like really clear agreement of like, okay, once the invoice is paid, these are the deliverables that I'm going to hold up on. This is how the process works. I think people are more likely to stick to that because when they know that they're not paying you till after, it almost shifts the power dynamic a little bit to instead of being like 50-50 partners, they sometimes can feel like they have more power because they haven't paid you yet. So they can ask for additional things or they can like throw you last minute stuff and they feel like they can do that because they know that you want to get paid at the end of the month. Whereas if you've already been paid and you've been really clear on like, this is what it looks like, these are the deliverables, I think it makes it feel like more of a partnership and an equal playing field, and they're less likely to spring that kind of stuff on you.
Yeah, I guess the last question for you, how did you handle that? Because that seems a little bit stressful if they're hitting you up on a Thursday and they want, like, this campaign done next week that you're unaware of. Like, how did you handle that?
Yeah, in that case, I was pretty upset at the time. Like I felt like I was being kind of taken advantage of, but I did it because I was like, at the end of the day, like I'll do this because I wanted to see how it performed anyway. But I think it was a couple weeks later where I just said like I won't do this anymore. I don't know if you realize how much work that was for me, and with only a few days notice, that wasn't really enough time for me to actually like give it the amount of strategy that I would have liked to. So at that point, I actually asked for more money to keep doing it. So I was like, it's really not. I don't like to ever say like it's not worth my time, but I was like,
Not worth my time.
it's not worth my time to get like these last minute projects sprung on me, and yeah, it was very frustrating. But yeah, I actually ended up asking for more money, and at first he said no, but then he came back a few weeks later and was like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Damn, was that on the
But
phone
now
call
I
too, or was that, like, a through email out of curiosity? The more
That
money for the
was, yeah, that was just, messaging, like, we talked back and forth in Messenger. Um,
good for
he had
you.
sent a voice note saying, like, "Yeah, I really wanna send this out next week," and I knew he wasn't doing it from, like, a malicious intent. I know that he's a last-minute thinker sometimes and was like, "Hey, I had this idea, I really wanna put it out there." I was like, "Yeah, in the future, if you know that you wanna do a promotion, I need way more notice than that." Like,
Yeah,
it's hard to set those boundaries when you don't have a lot of other clients that you give time to, because when you have other clients paying you, it's a lot easier to tell somebody no because you're like, "I actually don't have the time to do this last minute because I have other clients that I have, this time carved out for." When you're new and if that's, like, your only client, it's really hard to say no to that because you want the work and you don't want them to run. But I think it just goes back to what we said before, that if you get paid up front, I think those things are less likely to happen because if they haven't paid you yet, that client will sometimes feel like they have a little bit more power over you.
100%. I just wrote that down for our next call, adjusting the price. Maybe we could talk about that next time because I'm curious, like, how you went about that, and because that's also hard to do, to, like, when you have a price and then to go and have to readjust it or whatever. I've never had to do that yet, but I'm curious. So maybe we could say that for next time. But happy 4th
Yeah.
again, and
Yeah.
thanks to everyone on the call, and happy. Hope you have a good weekend, Kelsey.
Yeah, you too. Good to see you, Jer.
All right, bye.